Welcome back, everyone. I am using the Iceland postcard.psd file, so please have that open so you can follow along. So in this lesson, we're going to be learning how we can customize the workspace, how we can learn about the workspace in Photoshop, essentially understand the anatomy and some of the terminology around Photoshop. Now, everything I'm going to show you is the same for both the PC and the Mac, so no need to worry there if you're on a different operating system than me. Okay, so currently I'm looking at the workspace called the Essentials workspace. Now let's go ahead and take a look how we can identify what that is and how we can also change that. So if you'll notice over here in the far upper left, I have this little drop-down menu. This little drop-down menu tells me that I'm in the Essentials workspace. So if you're not currently, you can go ahead and change that and then go ahead and click on Reset Essentials, and then I'm back to that. So let's go ahead and just start cracking away and making some changes to this to make it look a little bit more user-friendly for us. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little guy way up here to make my Tools panel 2 columns. And you're going to see that's going to be a lot easier to read. You're going to see that Photoshop also sections things out in a little more intuitive way when you have it in 2 columns. It's going to be the first change I'm going to make. The next change I'm going to make has to do with which panels do I want, right? I have my colors panel, I have my swatches, right? I got all these things here, right? I got channels, I got paths, all these things here. Some of these I don't want. So very simply, all we do is right click on the panel we do not want, choose close. Right click, patterns, close. Not working with channels right now, not working with paths, right click. Now you will notice that when you right click, you get other options as well, like you can minimize. Well, that's kind of nice, right? So layers now gets minimized. So I can right click and I can go ahead and expand it. That's kind of nice. Also note that I can move these panels around just the same. So if I want layers just kind of floating here, I can absolutely do that. Just a very simple click and drag. And there we go. I can also expand this out to make it taller, to make it shorter. I can even make it wider, very kind of delicate there. There you go. Just make sure you find that little double-sided arrow and you're good to go. Now you're also going to see some times where there are panels that you want to use that are not shown here. So all of our panels live in one particular place, and that is the window menu. And again, this is the same thing for if you're on a PC or if you're on a Mac. So if I click on window, you'll see in alphabetical order, I have all of the panels available to me. So for example, if I want to bring out my character panel, I click on that and then notice that the character panel appears along with the paragraph panel as a little bonus. And then you'll notice that a new column now appears for all of your other additional panels if you like to bring them in. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse that. You'll notice I can very easily access it, expand it, and collapse it. Very nice. And of course I can drag that out just like I did with my layers panel. Another nice little pro tip is if you double click on the layer name, on the panel name, you can see very good. If you double click on that, it comes right up. Expand, collapse, expand, collapse. You'll also notice that there's a little X there if you want to as well. Now, if I want to move this back to where it was, you'll see I have a few different options here. Keep an eye on the blue halo as soon as I sort of touch ground here. You'll notice that when I move to here, I get a little blue halo, little blue halo, little blue halo. Wherever that blue halo is where this panel is going to live. I'm going to drag mine way down to the bottom, and you're going to see a tiny little blue halo way in the bottom, and lo and behold, that is where my panel lives, right there at the bottom. So I love exactly what I've done here, okay? I love this. I'm going to keep this all set up, and I want to save this as my own. So what I'm going to do is click on the little drop down where I started from, and I'm going to choose New Workspace, right? Click on that, and you're going to see here, I can name it. Okay, I'm going to say Dave's Faves. Wonderful. And then just click on these boxes to make sure it's basically freezing everything. This is the workspace I want. I'm overriding the essentials. So I click on Save. And now when I click on the drop down again, you will see there's Dave's Faves. Wonderful. And then anytime I mess anything up, right, I go a little bit crazy, let's say I delete some things, I can always come back to that. That's what's so great about this. I like to call this kind of like the Mary Poppins effect, where it just sort of like cleans up your mess, right? Let me just go ahead and make this even more messy so you kind of get the effect. Okay, wow, what a disaster, madman at work. I click on the drop down, and then all I'm going to do now is say reset Dave's faves, and then I'm back. Okay, and now that I am done customizing my workspace, I recommend getting yours to look like mine, creating your own workspace, and naming it accordingly. In this next lesson, we're going to learn about some of the basics of understanding what some of our panels do, but also we can get our hands dirty with resizing some of our photos, moving them around, rotating, essentially kind of creating something like this and how this is more or less done. So, first thing we want to identify is on the left-hand side, we have our tools, right? And we're going to be working with this initial tool called the Move tool. So let's go ahead and activate that if it's not activated already. And I want to make sure that you have both the Show Transform Tools box and the Auto Select box selected. For some of you, it may look a little different. It might look like icons. Just make sure that they're selected. Why are we doing this? If I click on that, I want to actually see the Show Transform Tools. I want to be able to auto-select the layer. Earlier, we talked about the Layers panel. Here is my Layers panel. You can see when I click on it, my layers then act accordingly. Very important because it'll kind of keep you in the dark otherwise. Okay? And by default, these are not activated. So let's make sure that those are in fact selected. So I'm also going to drag out my Layers panel like I showed you in the earlier lesson. So that way I can have easier access to it if necessary. Now in my Layers panel, this will be our first introduction to the Layers panel, you will see that I have some names for my Layers panel, and notice I also have the ordering of things. It's going to become very important as we move throughout this class. So let's work on our first lesson of resizing and also rotating some of our items that we have here on our canvas. So when I click on this, you'll notice how I get a little bounding box. You'll also notice that I have my tools up on top here as well, all my different individual controls. If that's not there, if you click on Window, you'll see that I have this Options option that comes and goes, right? As I click on that. So I'm going to bring that back. Fantastic. Okay, so if yours is not there, you can always go to Window. Just like I said, that's where all of your panels live. Fantastic. So now I see that there. And when I click and drag on this corner, I'll be able to resize that accordingly. But notice when I kind of do this or I kind of do that, not so great. So what I'm going to do is either click on this little circle slash to reset it. Also notice that there's a little tooltip that pops up that says, oh, I can also hit escape in parentheses. That's what I'm going to do. And that sets us right back. So what a good rule of thumb for you to do is if you hold down the Shift key as you click and drag, it keeps it in proportion. It constrains your proportions as you click and drag on the corners. You can sometimes do the sides if you want to, but that will stretch it out or make it a little bit too narrow. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Also notice that, as the name implies, with the Move tool, I can move this wherever I want because it's its own individual layer. That's essentially how Photoshop works. So I can move this around independent of this, and I could just basically shuffle these around accordingly, no problem. Okay, but now let's say I wanted to rotate these in a different way. If you'll notice here on the outside, I'm going to move my mouse away from the double-sided arrow, and I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get this kind of little button hook. See that? Just go ahead and click and drag, and then it'll move accordingly. And then when I'm done transforming, very important here, you have to tell Photoshop that you're done transforming. This is known as transformation. So right now, if I try to do something, everything gets grayed out. Like a lot of things get grayed out as a result. I have to tell Photoshop that I'm done doing what I'm doing. Earlier, we discussed how we can work with the little circle slash to tell it, no thanks, I don't commit. Connected to that is this little check mark to say, yes, I do commit. So I have two options here. I can click on the checkbox or I can hit enter on my keyboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the checkbox for now, and then I've committed to that, and that's done official. So I click on this. I'm going to go ahead now and rotate that one, no problem. This time I'm going to hit the enter key, and that is committed. It's that easy.